Describe to me how your short stay in Zambia has been.
For me, it was positive. I have to admit that the country is good, the life standards are good, the roads, the facilities are much better than average on the continent. I would love to explore the country more than what I did, but I didn't have the time to travel for holidays. So maybe after my work is done, I can have a few days. On the football side, it was tough, especially because the landscape or the environment is quite divided.
How divided? What do you mean?
Well, it's a delicate situation. It's very political. It's based on status, on self-protection, not too much making or taking responsibilities. So yeah, you always have to manage a lot of things to not make too much noise, but still try to get what you want. Yeah, it's a very tough situation where as a coach it was hard to find my way through and to find a balance in doing my job as good as possible.
Quite some strong lines there. You talk about the environment having been political and people not taking responsibility. What exactly are you referring to?
Well, many questions that I asked to the federation were not answered. And I think it's because if they say no, it can come back to them. So it's more also a job protection sometimes. And I understand these people. It's hard economical situation, so you want to survive yourself, but it stocks, or the development in football stocks a bit by the admin side.
The picture that you paint to me is not exactly consistent with the time that you arrived. For instance, when you arrived, you were flaunted all over. There was the official unveiling. You were given a 5-match target of qualifying Zambia to the Nations Cup. Where did things start going wrong?
I think it was not starting to get wrong during my period. I think also the results of the qualifying or the qualification of World Cup Russia hid a bit the underneath issues that were already popping up in football. When you come in, you don't have any notice of what is going on. So it's after a while, after weeks, maybe sometimes months, you discover what is underneath. And I don't want to use it as an excuse to not qualify, because the target was obvious and we didn't deliver the qualification. But many things, and I think the Chinese have a very good expression. Water always drops from above to down. That the influence from outside had an impact on what was happening on the field.
Yet, despite all that you say, there was a time that we're given an indication that probably your contract would be extended. It was all over the media. And you also expressed a willingness to go on, your contract being extended beyond March. Then suddenly there was a press statement saying your contract was not going to be renewed. What happened?
Well, the intention was spread out already in December, 2 weeks after the Mozambique game. And indeed, I said before New Year that my intention was to extend. I think also the president had spread out these words in media and towards myself that the intention was to continue. But after 2 months and you don't have an official feedback, that's one. The second problem was my Belgian assistant is not paid from day one until now. So making my bench for the future was also a problem because we also could not agree on who would be the local assistant. I prefer...
But at the same time, sorry to cut in, at the same time, the nation was told that we're given the leverage, the latitude to choose who your assistants were going to be. And yet, this is not exactly what you're saying here. There was a disagreement.
Yes, and that's the argument you have. That's what was told, and that's also one of the lines in the contract that I approve accordingly with the technical committee, the local assistants. But you could feel, and that's maybe the environment where we have to deal with, propose different people than what I would have liked on my bench. So I would have liked a full-time assistant, not linked to a club, to have him full-time next to me. And I preferred to keep the one I had from the start. I think last week they also appointed two assistant coaches unilateral.
You didn't have any input in that?
No. And that's also the discussion we had to make my future bench. So all these small things, you feel it as maybe my ambition and their ambition is not running parallel. And that's why I already clearly communicated to the president, I think 10 days before they made the press release, that it was better to not continue and to not extend the contract. I spoke to him clearly my opinion. Even I said on I think it was February 14th, Valentine's Day, that I would resign. That the situation was not running parallel, so it was better to stop immediately. Their answer came that because the president was outside of the country, that we would have a formal meeting where we could deal with my issues. And I think 3-4 days later, after the weekend when he came back from duties abroad, we had a formal meeting and we agreed as adults to continue until the end of the contract, to deal with the Namibia game as best as possible. So I was surprised and a bit disappointed when the press release of the federation came last week that they would not renew my contract. So it's a bit the world upside down.
Are you saying that you actually resigned before the press statement came out, and then you had a meeting or a discussion with the president where you both agreed that you're going to be around until the Namibia match?
That's what happened, yes.
So, again, what exactly happened? Because you seem to be giving, or you are giving this side of the story, which is not very consistent with what the country has been told from time to time by the association. What kind of work culture and environment were you operating in, or are you operating in up to this time?
I think that question was already answered in one of my answers before. I think it's a divided one, where everyone is self-protecting himself or creating a better image than what we actually have. And I think to make steps forward, you have to be realistic and not covering up things. I think it's better to be realistic. This is our actual situation. This is what we have to do. This is when we're going to do it, and this is when we will achieve things. And it's not to do the other way around, to say this is what we want, this is our ambition, to just spread out words, because that's social ambition for myself. For me, it's more, what do you put in today to achieve things in the future?
Your critics might say you are fishing for all these reasons simply because you did not meet your target and you were willing to stay on. Now that the association has announced that they're not going to renew your contract, you are coming up with all these reasons. How would you react to that?
I take responsibility as first, because I'm the coach. We didn't qualify. So my balance is 2 wins, two losses away and 1 draw away. So in the final, I don't think it's a bad balance. We could have done better, so I'm the first one to take the responsibility. But I think not everything was done in the best way possible to create circumstances that allowed us to do much better. So I don't want to push the full non-qualification into hands of others. No, because it's always depending on more than one. But I think what I want to say is that things could have done better, sportive side and on the other side.
When everything is considered, are you going to be on the bench for the Namibia match? Because one, you resigned 10 days before the press statement, and then there was a press statement. Where exactly do you belong as things are?
I belong in the meeting that we had, the formal meeting, where we all discussed and agreed on continuing until 31st of March. That's where I find myself, that's where my ambition is for the next month, and that's where my target is for next month. I don't have to look at others, I don't have to look at excuses. That's what we agreed, and that's where we're going for.
Other than the money that your assistant is owed, you are also owed money, I'm told. But on top of that, I'm reliably informed that you've spent up to $40,000 of your personal money to help in the camping of the national team and other logistics. Is that true?
Well, let's say I did everything in my possibility to achieve things. Yes. I don't want to talk about the money or what I've put in or not put in. Let's say I don't have a problem with the government. They paid regularly, so that's not a problem. But yes, I brought in tools, I brought in things from my side to work in good circumstances and to achieve as much as possible.
Are you expecting a refund for that?
I said I don't want to talk about the money.
Are you expecting a refund on that?
I think that's one of the things that if they agreed on that I was allowed to bring in things, yes, then I think the refund has to come.
Let's talk about your relationship with the coaches, the fans, the media. How has it been?
I think that was quite okay. I know not everyone will be for me, not everyone will be against me, but we had a WhatsApp group where we communicated when there was camp. We communicated what we were doing on camp. I was cutting, or my video analyst was cutting images of the exercises on camp, so we communicated to them what was done, what was the intention of the camp. I tried to communicate with them. Sometimes they had questions, sometimes I had questions. I think that was not on a good way. Of course, there was the interview in December where I was talking about the technology, but that was not pointing out coaches. I think it's coach education. I think the country, and I hope the new technical director will set up these programs to introduce these things, because I'm working in my technical bench with a lot of technology, and then it's hard to spend time and on doing it all on your own and learning all the coaches around you to use these things. I had to spend much more time on my football side. So I hope, and technology is a part of the future development, not only in sports but also in all parts of the world. I think it will become a very important tool to get achievements. So the only thing I wanted to point out in that interview was start implementing it, start using it, start learning, start develop yourself. So in the future you don't get behind, but you're ahead of all the countries around us.
How much of an impact did the absence of the technical director have on your work? Because for most of the time that you've been here, Zambia has not had a technical director.
Maybe not directly, but indirectly it has an impact, because I think there are a lot of things missing from underneath, and then I talk about grassroots, setting up programs from 6 years until 18. Such things, yes, because when you improve the general level of your football in Zambia, automatically your national team becomes stronger. The pool of players where you can pick from as a national team coach is much larger. So directly, I don't think there was a big influence, but over the years, I think this balanced growth that maximizing the potential of young players was not reached all the time. So the pool of players to pick and maximizing the potential of every individual could be done better in the past years.
There was also a famous story that was attributed to you as having said that Zambian players don't know the importance of nutrition. Before then, there was an aspect of you having referred to one of the questions that a journalist asked you as having been silly. Could you clarify that?
About the lifestyle, I think there is a lot of improvement possible, and that's what we also implemented in our camps. I also requested for the future a nutritionist, because food is an important part of recovery. Lifestyle is a very important part of football to recover, to maintain your focus for everything. Your sleep pattern is very important. So we try to educate the guys as well during the past months. I think lifestyle becomes a part of life when you want to become when you're a professional player. And what we try to do is that open their eyes that being a professional inside as a local is not the same as being a professional outside of the country, that there's a big gap. So we try to educate them to overcome and close the gap. So if they can travel abroad, that they are not shocked and not stepping into a totally new world. That's what I and my technical bench try to do, to educate, because we have to achieve. But I think also part of the job as a national team coach is to educate, make players better, make them understand what is real professional football. Because when you go to a tournament, you need all these things. You can drink Coca-Cola and Fanta during the meals. There is water, there is your protein shakes, there is enough sleep, there is the rest between two sessions. All these things could be improved, and that's what we try.
And on the aspect of the journalists, how was your relationship with the journalists?
I think it was cat and mouse, and I'm totally different when I'm on my job than when I'm in my private life. Many people who I've met outside my job, they say, "Oh, you're so different when I meet you here." I say yes, because I cannot be who I want to be on my job. They kill me. So it was cat and mouse. I also have to say that I enjoy sometimes that game. Sometimes they wrote correctly what I told in press meetings. Sometimes they adjusted a bit in different lines. But in the end, I never think I mentioned to a journalist that he wrote bad things or he quoted me wrongly, even though sometimes it happened. But they have to sell as well, and I understand their business and their core business. I think they understand my core business, that not every training could be open for the media. So it was finding a balance, sometimes in my advantage, sometimes in their advantage. But in the end, I think we got along all the time, and I never refused official press meetings, so I think it was a normal relationship.
With the benefit of having been inside, having coached Zambia, what does the future hold for the country in terms of its football?
As I said, there is potential. The question now is how to maximize that potential and create an environment that allows everyone to maximize that potential. Create one vision, and I think the technical director will have a big job to do to create one vision forward, and that the paperwork allows progress. If these things can be achieved, there's a bright future. They won AFCON under 20 2 years ago. So these guys are still young. They still have 4 to 5 years ahead of them. And it's 4 years to work to the World Cup. So with good planning, good organization, beautiful things can happen for this country.
So from the technical side, there's a lot of promise. What is your assessment of the administrative side of the game?
I think it has to run parallel.
Is it?
Not always.
Why?
Why? I think that's a good question for the administration part. I will not judge or assess it. but sometimes I felt struck in administration. So all departments in football, and that's administration, football, marketing, sponsorships, everything has to go in the same speed or with the same speed, parallel of each other. When the gap becomes too big, then the chain breaks, and when the chain breaks, you will not achieve, because then everything is starting to fall apart. Everything has to stay as one. Every department has to work as one, has to communicate in a good way, and then I really believe that this country can do great things.
So is the chain strong right now? Is it breaking, or is it about to break?
Well, I think when you don't agree to extend the contract, then there's a not matching ambition between sides. So I think the chain can be much stronger than what it is.